3. Atlas. The sky opened. What returned will always haunt us. Past, now, red, presence. Another fictional work in our anthology of stories that need to be told. 3. Atlas. The sky opened. What returned will always haunt us. If you have a story that needs to be told, email it to stories@passnowred.com. If you like this story, stay tuned each Thursday evening for the next episode. Now. 3. Atlas. The sky opened. What returned will always haunt us. Enjoy. Echo in the coma. They killed the lights at 2:13, and everyone pretended it was normal. The control room at Gemini South carried the odor of burnt dust and bitter coffee, ozone hanging sharp enough to sting the teeth. Racks hummed like restrained thunder, vibrating against the ribs of the room. Screens splashed blue-white light over pale faces. On the central monitor, the Comet 3/ATLAS burned faint and steady. Coma stretched thin, nucleus darker than coal, tail smearing across the void like a bruise. A visitor, not ours. The technicians recited their steps like ritual. Seeing, centering, exposure. The cadence was meant to steady nerves, but every syllable rattled with tension. I wasn't supposed to be in that room. Not after Gemini South. Not after the leak. One cough drop-sized drive with stolen spectra had reduced me from researcher to consultant, which meant silent observer. But Meechline, my contact, had insisted. Watch the cyanide band, she told me. Look for flutter. Not biological. Informational flutter isn't a word you see in journals. But when the second exposure passed 600 seconds, I saw it. A tremor in the trace. A pulse, hidden in the noise. 16 hours, regular, like a heartbeat coded into frozen stone. How stable is that? I asked. Artifact, the night lead muttered. Too quick, too defensive. We rolled a third run. At 2:13, the comet vanished. Not the pointing, not the backups, just the comet feed. The room froze. A chair squealed. Someone cursed, then swallowed it whole. The air thinned, like the latch on a pressurized cabin had slipped. 7 seconds later, the image returned. The comet looked unchanged. The coma still bled pale. The tail dragged neat, but nothing was the same. I wrote 4 words in my notebook, underlined twice. It learned our gaze. The quieting. Washington smells permanent. Brass polish rubbed into railings. Dust in forgotten folders. Wires hot enough to hum. The UAP pre-hearing was all theater. Senators struck postures. Agency heads played calm. A NASA liaison complained that pivoting a Mars orbiter to stare at a comet would waste reaction wheel life. A staffer countered, if it's only a comet, transparency is cheap. Both arguments rang hollow. Then the memo appeared. Red tags, boldface warnings, micro-objects, sub-kilogram separations, ballistic constellations, a diagram, string of pearls plume, beads breaking off at perihelion, drifting on solar wind. Staggered arrivals like a rainstorm stretched across weeks. No one wanted to admit the obvious, but the silence admitted it for them. Something organized was moving. I slipped out before the script collapsed. The elevator dropped me into summer heat that clung like wet wool. My phone buzzed. Meechline. Wait. Me. No. Safe meant silence. I'd never been safe. I booked a flight south, then drove east until the asphalt cracked into 2-lane strips, and maps forgot to name them. The desert array sprawled across a plateau, like scrap given purpose. Dishlets scavenged from auctions, scopes patched with mismatched glass, radios soldered from stubbornness. To the eye, it looked fragile. To the ear, it was cathedral. Lyra met me at the gate, jawline sharp as if cut from stone, eyes cataloging me by signal to noise. We'd built impossible rigs before. She didn't ask why I came. She already knew. We powered the array. The dishlets hummed awake. The desert braced. The sky leaned down, listening. The desert array. Night on the plateau cuts clean. Stars don't twinkle. They stab. The array ticked and groaned as frost stiffened its bones. The radios hissed their usual gossip, satellites whispering, ionosphere humming, Earth talking to itself. On the second night, the murmur arrived. Not static, a pulse. 16 hours, exactly the comet's spin. Lyra bent it over the trace. That's too neat. We stripped the signal bare. Inside lived prime intervals. 2, 3, 5, 7. Numbers laid out like bait. Not a beacon, I said. A test, on the rack, taped in marker. No calls, only answers. By dawn, dust devils strutted across the flats, battering the dish struts until they moaned. I thought of Gemini, 213, the blackout. The comet wasn't reflecting, it was responding. Lyra reseated a cable, her fingers precise. You want to be right, I want to be honest. They're never the same thing. We left the recorders running. The desert listens better than people. On the third night, the murmur thickened. Beneath it, a whisper opened into gaps, like bones surfacing from sand. Lyra counted softly, eyes locked on the scope. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. Obnoxious. Obnoxious means deliberate, I said. She didn't laugh. The weight of the signal pressed the air flat. We hadn't transmitted, but it felt like steel tapped for fractures. The sky was listening back. The afterlight. Perihelion hides truth behind the sun. Eyes fail, ears endure. At 3:06, the desert cracked with sound. Static tore into strips that wanted to be words. Our CO2 proxy rose in steps too clean for chemistry. Each rise exact, each tread identical. Not random, designed. Structured emission, Lyra whispered, verdict heavy in her voice. The pulse surged. A checksum bloomed inside its own noise, folding like origami. Noise that wasn't noise, noise as seed. Then numbers spilled out. Coordinates, Gulf of Mexico, Pass, Christiane. The pilings, where storms had once taught me loss. Lyra's gaze locked on mine. No hesitation. We had a boat. The Gulf Corridor. The trawler Mariah's Doubt smelled of diesel, brine, and frying grease, soaked into steel. Every vibration beneath my boots felt alive, as though the deck resented secrets. The Gulf sky was clamped shut, radar smeared with clutter, specks that weren't storms, weren't ships, weren't birds. Lightning paced the horizon, claws dragging across clouds. We dropped our bait, a buoy wrapped in mesh, seeded with playback of the desert pulse. Not a call, an answer. The sea responded. Wakes cut toward us without holes to carve them. The engine coughed, then died, leaving us adrift in silence. A violet flare rose from the water, brief, soundless. Lyra gripped the rail until her knuckles went white. Cut the tether. It'll find us anyway, I said. The buoy trembled, playback warped, skipping beats like a failing heart. Lyra's handheld scrolled in panic. 12 voices under it. None are ours. The water glowed. Phosphorescent plankton stitched into hex cells, climbing the hole like ivy. Then a veil rose, a curtain of light, teaching air to bear weight. From it, a knot coalesced, folding inside out, more presence than body. The mast sang like crystal under strain. Pressure and light pressed into my skull. You offered echo. We returned a map. Lyra yanked the cough drop drive from her jacket. A filament slid out, touched it, drew it away. Frost scarred her glove. The drive was gone. Our GPS gasped alive, screen pounding coordinates. 30.3156 degrees north, 89.2090 degrees west. The old pilings. Pass, Christiane. The halo dissolved. The wakes stilled. The engine remembered itself. Lyra shook so hard her teeth clattered. Tell me we didn't give them everything. We have backups, I lied. You're a terrible liar. She laughed anyway, brittle, eyes wet in the lightning flash. The night leaned closer, listening. The boarding. On shore, hearings droned like idling engines. Senators mouthed control, networks plastered, interdimensional across their crawls. Each line called from a number designed to die. You are not the ocean. Don't drown. I'm not drowning, I said. I'm being boarded. She urged patience until November. I sent her the coordinate anyway, then erased it. Lyra and I drove the coast. Past Christiane's piling is jutted like ribs in surf. Bones of memory. My phone buzzed. The array logging a new line. Not nickel. Something that rhymed with it but wasn't on any table. If they wanted to tear us open, they would have, Lyra said. They didn't. We went to them. That's etiquette a shadow passed. Felt, not seen. The gulls froze mid-cry. The air shimmered above the surf, stretched taut like glass. Prime intervals rippled through it. The array's link blinked. Return accepted. A packet downloaded. Not a message, a plan. Not machines. U.S. Our impulses, fractures, fears, annotated with patience. A blueprint of behavior. The sheen collapsed. The gulls screamed themselves back into being. Lyra's voice shook. Do we tell them? We give them something they can hold without breaking. We keep the rest. They'll call it hostile. They'll call it anything but expensive, I said. The spectrum steadied. Boarding wasn't invasion. It was invitation. Return signal. I didn't go back to D.C. My letter spoke of restraint, how silence itself can be engineering. That night, the spectral line split into a doublet, two shapes of the same mark, punctuation. Lyra texted, "They're leaving us punctuation." I stood by the pilings, half afraid, half calm. Each line called, "What did it take?" "A question," I said, "and a drive we could lose. Will they come again?" They never left. We just became worth their time. The coordinate glowed on my phone, a promise to the boy who once counted storms here. Lyra messaged, tomorrow night." "Tomorrow night," I replied, pocketing the phone so the sky wouldn't think I was ignoring it. You have been listening to 3 I Atlas. The Sky Opened. What Returned Will Always Haunt Us. Produced and adapted for audio narration by Past, Now, Read. Stories that need to be told. If you have a story that needs to be told, email it to stories@pastnowread.com. Please subscribe, like, and hit that bell for future updates. If you like this story, stay tuned for the next episode each Thursday evening. Follow for more. If you like our stories, please tag with someone who may also like Past and Now Read. Stories that need to be told. Thank you. All content and images are copyrighted by Faux Nay House, LLC, 2025. All rights reserved.